But when it comes to digital sustainability, we really do have all the data. They may not be perfect, but we do have some sort of data about how much energy is being used every time someone visits a web page, every time someone plays a video, things like that. It's really exciting that nowadays we can calculate the emissions and we can really work on a roadmap to make a difference, to kind of limit or reduce the emissions and the energy usage. And I think that's really exciting.
Hello, and welcome to the EcoSend podcast, a weekly podcast on becoming a climate conscious business. Every week, we'll be interviewing founders, marketers, and leaders who are championing the climate. The podcast is hosted by myself, James Gill, co-founder and CEO of Go Squared, and the makers of EcoSend. If you run a business or are responsible for growing one, and you want to have a positive impact on the environment, then listen on. Every episode, our goal is for you to learn something and be inspired to take some action. Every single one of us making small changes and some large changes will add up. We're all in this together. So let's get on with the show. Thanks so much for listening. Now let's meet today's guest. Hi there, welcome to another episode of the EcoSend podcast. The EcoSend podcast is a show we do every week. It's about half an hour, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, where I, your host, James Gill, talk to wonderful people in the world of sustainability, often in digital sustainability, about how we can all be making the world a little bit better. Each week, it may be an entrepreneur and a founder, it might be someone in the marketing world, or someone just more focused on nonprofit and in the charitable sector that I'll be speaking to. And we're now well and truly into series 3 of the show. So thank you to all of those of you who have been listening all of this time. It means the world to us. Today, I am thrilled to have 2 very special guests on the show who are from Wholegrain Digital. I'm joined by Tom and Marketa. Now, Tom Greenwood is the co-founder of Wholegrain Digital, a certified BCorp and green trailblazer in the digital agency world. Tom is known for writing and speaking about how business, design, and web technology can be part of the solution to environmental issues, and is author of the book Sustainable Web Design. So that's already some pretty good credentials for being on the show, Tom. And Marketa works as digital sustainability lead at Wholegrain Digital, a London-based web design agency specializing in building low-carbon, accessible, and usable websites. In her role, Marketa is helping clients understand how to make their digital products more sustainable. With a background in marketing and sustainable development, she has a deep interest in storytelling for positive impact and is passionate about climate activism, having trained with Al Gore to become a climate reality leader. So I could not wish for 2 better guests to be speaking to today. Hi, Tom. Hi, Marketa. How are you both doing?
Very good, thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Great to have you. Tom, I don't know if you wanted to start by just sharing a little bit more in your own words about how you're doing and maybe your own journey to where you are today. It'd be great to hear.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, my journey to today, I'll try and keep it brief, but essentially,
if you can condense your whole life into just 1 minute, that would be great. Yeah.
I started my career in industrial design, and with a focus on sustainability, I was really passionate about sustainability and how design could help solve environmental and social problems, and kind of along the way, I discovered that digital was really exciting. It kind of felt quite new and fresh at the time, and I thought it would be an amazing way to kind of create value for people without any environmental impact, compared to like designing and making physical products. And so that was one of the things that sort of led me to start Wholegrain Digital with my wife Anita, which we did 16 years ago. And that journey led us to both kind of explore how do we run a business in a sustainable way, and through that learning that, oh crikey, digital does have an environmental impact. What is it? How do we solve it? And from that kind of led to Wholegrain becoming sort of known for our work on digital sustainability as well.
Wow, it's really good to hear the story. And yeah, I'm sure anyone who's listening who's even sort of started to be intrigued about the world of digital sustainability has probably ended up stumbling upon Wholegrain's site or one of your resources at some point. So it's great to see where it all started. And Marketa, how about yourself? How did you get to today? And again, your life story in 1 minute. That would be great. No, no pressure. No, don't worry.
No, I guess I've always been passionate about sustainability and just our connection to nature. I mean, I remember hearing about, like those fairy tales where you would have grandmothers who would be like harvesting herbs and making teas and stuff like that. And I was really conscious that that was kind of disappearing, and I didn't know any of those grandmothers anymore. But I guess my personal journey to sustainability, I can really pinpoint one specific event that happened in London that was really, really kind of fatal in my journey towards sustainability and even in my career. And that was when I used to listen to a podcast by Jeremy Wade, 10 Words. He stopped recording any new episodes, but I really love it. And I noticed on LinkedIn that he was hosting an event in London about climate change. And I love his way of talking and kind of explaining even complex topics to his audiences. And so I signed up and I went there, and within like an hour, he explained climate change the way that I never heard it before. Like it contained all the what's, the hows, the whys, everything was just squeezed into that 1 hour, and it really blew my mind. It was the first time that I actually understood why sustainability is so important, whereas before I felt like we were told that we should live a sustainable life, but the why was always a bit of a mystery. As a good citizen, you kind of do recycle and you do all of the good stuff, but the why, the big why we should do it for the planet and for humankind, that was always a bit of a mystery. So that event really, really changed the way that I looked at everything related to sustainability, even in my personal life and in my work life. And so I, similar as Jeremy, I really wanted to become climate reality leader. So I joined one of those courses at the beginning of COVID, actually. So I became trained as a climate reality leader. And that's also a similar time when I met Vinita and Tom for the very first time, and they introduced me to the very concept of digital sustainability and digital carbon footprint. And I remember the very first meeting with Vinita, and she said, "Oh yeah, well, every single email has a carbon footprint." I was like, "What? What do you mean?" And I just became really obsessed about this topic. I was really passionate about it, and I just started researching everything about it. I was reading up, and we started collaborating on various different projects. Back then I was working in marketing and kind of SEO, and so digital sustainability felt like a very, very relevant topic for me. And so I started looking into it, and a few years later, here I am. Started working at Wholegrain Digital, and it's really, I'm excited about all the projects that are coming up, and it feels really great to work for such a purpose-led organization.
Absolutely. What a fascinating story. Gosh, and amazing to see how like a single sort of talk and 1 hour of someone speaking can have such a tremendous impact as well, and drive a message home so much. And then I assume when you were learning about all of this, you might have come across this wonderful book that Tom's written then about digital sustainability and maybe, I guess we're coming to the experts here on sustainable web design. How, was this something that naturally just came about once you were on this path, Tom? Like, was it from the start, like, we're going to build an agency that focuses on sustainable web design, and I'm going to write a book about it, and that'll be my everything sorted? Or how did things begin? And clearly they've gotten to this incredible point where you're renowned for both great web design by its own right, but also having this environmental and climate conscious side to things. And how did that journey take place? And you said 16 years. That's also in its own right like an incredible achievement to have built a business over that time. I'm keen to hear more about that whole journey and that story, and what even is digital sustainability for those who are maybe new to this term.
Yeah, sure. Or maybe I'll give you that sort of that backstory, then Marketa can do the what is digital sustainability bit.
Okay, yeah, great. Share it around.
Yeah. The so when we started Wholegrain, we were really focused on sustainability in two ways. One was we wanted to try and run our own business in a way that was sort of environmentally friendly and socially responsible, and see how far we could push that, and really use it as a model for kind of experimenting with how responsible a business can be. Because I was conscious that a lot of environmentalists at the time, of which I sort of counted myself as one, were very critical of businesses in general. But there wasn't really like a solution on the table that I could see. It was just like businesses are bad and they're destroying everything. And I felt like, well, that's not very constructive.
Ban all business. That's the solution.
Down with business.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, if I start a business, then I'll get to like see how difficult it is to try and run it in an environmentally friendly way. And so it's sort of been a bit of an experiment in that sense. So that was one piece, was like, how do you just run a business in a responsible way? The other piece was, as an agency, let's try and work on projects that we feel are doing something positive in the world, and work with clients who we feel are kind of aligned with our own values. And that was really like the two pillars of sustainability for like the first 10 years. And digital sustainability wasn't really a part of it. It was just, let's do really good work for really good people and try and get our own house in order behind the scenes. And then when we're coming up to like the 10th anniversary of Wholegrain, we decided we were going to go through the process of trying to certify as a B Corp. We sort of felt like it would be a good way of kind of growing up a bit as a company with, like very kind of free-form, informal organization, which we still are to some extent, but we felt like we needed to grow up a bit, and also like help us like assess, like, are we doing well? Like, for 10 years we've been trying to run this business in a responsible way. Are we actually doing a decent job? Or not? So having like an independent view on that from some experts was something we thought would be really valuable to us. So we went through this process, which itself is like really, really intense and challenging. And through it, they ask you about the products that you make and how do you reduce the environmental impact and measure the environmental impact. And we were like, well, we don't know. And I was really embarrassed, because I'd studied industrial design. I had done like life cycle assessments of like physical things in the past. Like, that's where I started my career. And then here I was running my own company, and I was like, oh, I can't even answer this question. Like, we've never even really thought about it. We just assume that digital is like literally doesn't exist.
It doesn't. It's not. It's not in a box anywhere. It's not come off a production line. So
exactly. And so I asked like everybody that I knew who I thought might know the answer to this in like the digital world, and they all just kind of gave me a funny look and said, "Oh, no, that's like there's no environmental impact of like the internet and digital technology." I was like, okay. So then I asked the B Corp assessment people, and they said the same thing. They came straight back and they said, oh no, you leave that whole section blank. That's what all other companies in your sector do.
Oh, wow.
Wow. And I was like, okay. So we did leave it blank the first time around. But it just really bothered me that like nobody had given me any evidence. It was just this like assumption that everyone was making.
And we don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that. There's nothing to see here. So that was the beginning of like, very quickly from that point, like we started doing research to see if there was any, actual evidence one way or the other, like, just to find out what is the impact of the internet and digital technology. We very quickly found out that there is an impact. And it's really significant, particularly in terms of energy consumption. And and then that led us on to like figuring out like, okay, like how do we quantify that in our own projects? How do we reduce that in design and development and hosting, and then how do we tell the world about it so that we're not the only people doing this? Because that's kind of pointless if we're the only people who know about it. So so that kind of then became like a real central element of all the work we're doing at Wholegrain, sort of 6 or so years ago.
Yeah, and also it's incredible that you embarked on that B Corp journey pretty early on, I guess, in the history of B Corp. I'm not sure quite how old B Corp is, but like it's become a much bigger thing today, obviously. But 6 years ago, that's ahead of the curve, right?
Yeah. It was the second year that B Corp had been in the UK when we got certified. And there were, I think, about 120 companies had got certified before us in that first year. Whereas now there's over 1,000 just in the UK.
Yeah.
Wow. And it was mostly kind of small businesses at the time, like really passionate kind of founders. Whereas now you've got like, you know, all ranges of sizes and types of companies. Yeah.
Incredible. And so Marketa, you joined was it sort of a few years ago and really started trying to drive the digital sustainability agenda quite a bit more profoundly, I take it.
Yeah, so I met Tom and Benita about it must be 4 or 5 years ago now.
Right. Yeah.
And as I said, we collaborated on various events, everything related to digital sustainability or climate change, or sustainability in general. And then I joined Wholegrain about a year ago, and the purpose was to just focus on this topic itself and really create a separate standalone, well, not standalone, but create a department at Wholegrain Digital that kind of serves clients with this only. So, for example, we can just calculate, you know, what we do with Website Carbon, which is the tool that we, you know, that's open source. Anyone can actually measure an estimation of carbon footprint of any web page on the internet. And we created an advanced version of that, which is a website carbon audit. So, for example, offering that to clients and just helping them understand what digital sustainability even means, you know, what it means for their teams, what it means with their websites, how can they improve it, how can they make their websites more efficient, more sustainable, and also just bringing this topic, raising awareness around this topic within other people's teams and other organizations' teams. It's still fairly niche and relatively new to a lot of teams, you know, so there's a lot of interest around educational aspect as well. Which is something that I'm very passionate about, so I love that.
Absolutely. I mean, most people are still trying to make their websites look half decent and make them work on mobile, let alone think about I don't know, the level of I guess there's quite a spectrum of appreciation different clients can have for different aspects of web design, and the tool you mentioned there, which of course we'll link to in the notes, but just to summarize it, the website carbon calculator, is it called the
Website Carbon, Carbon.
And so people can put their URL in there, and then out from that, what does that generate for them?
Yeah, so you can go to websitecarbon.com and insert a web page, a URL to a window, and that will basically calculate the carbon footprint of that web page for you. So what it does is that it uses the methodology that Tom and various other people created together using the latest academic research and all the knowledge that we have up to date, you know, about digital sustainability and digital carbon footprint. And basically it takes into account things like page weights and the number of visits, so page views. And based on that, it can calculate an estimation of a carbon footprint of that particular web page. And we also offer, so then it will present you a results page where you can see you know, the result of that particular web page, so whether it's cleaner or less so. And it also compares the carbon footprint to some more tangible things, like, you know, we try to keep it really simple. So there are things like how many cups of tea you would be able to make with the amount of energy that that particular web page needs to be, you know, to run over a year or so. So yeah, things like that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely, I think most of our listeners have some sort of web presence or are responsible for one. So hopefully, yeah, many people will find that fascinating, and also, yeah, likewise with the making it understandable as well. Like, I think there's so much, there's a lot of industry terms and jargon in the space, and so to translate even the sort of the carbon footprint value as a mathematical computed output versus what you can relate that to, I think probably has, I would imagine, has a much broader appeal and gets that message across much more successfully, which is great to hear.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is the reason why I'm so excited about digital sustainability, because I think that many things under the sort of sustainability umbrella are not measurable. But when it comes to digital sustainability, we really do have all the data. They may not be perfect, but we do have some sort of data about how much energy is being used every time someone visits a web page, every time someone plays a video, things like that. And obviously all of the data are still, or some of the data are still emerging, but it's really exciting that nowadays we can calculate the emissions and we can really work on a roadmap to make a difference, to kind of limit or reduce the emissions and the energy usage. And I think that's really exciting. We can go back to kind of being really creative and innovative and come up with exciting solutions that are just not on people's kind of priority list right now. And we're trying to change that.
Yeah, absolutely. I know another topic you wanted to touch on, which I'm personally extremely happy to talk about, but I don't want to steal too much of the show talking about this. But I know you wanted to talk about green or sustainable email marketing, and I know, was it Tom? Did you have some thoughts on this? I know you have a newsletter yourself, or you also run a newsletter at Wholegrain. So what were your thoughts on this? Because obviously it's a topic where we both have a lot of interest on both sides. But
yeah, I mean, so we've got two newsletters. We've got our digital sustainability newsletter called Curiously Green, and then I've got a personal one about sustainable business called Oxymoron, which is on Substack. And I think it's an interesting topic for me, just in the sense that once you learn about like digital sustainability being a thing, that like there's an environmental impact, one of the first things that most people come across is the impact of emails. And actually, when you look at the impact of emails, like, yes, it's the emails we're sending every day, but a huge amount of it is like marketing emails. And I think everybody is familiar with their inbox being just like absolutely flooded with like all these marketing emails. It's like, did I sign up for this? I can't remember.
And GDPR solved that, obviously.
Obviously that is no longer a problem. But like, so many of them are being sent every day, like millions or billions in reality. And actually not that many of them are being read. A lot of them are kind of like low quality. A lot of them, people, maybe they did sign up for them, maybe they didn't, but they don't remember signing up for them. But then there's this like smaller kind of core of like stuff where you actually really want it, and you want, like, it is important, and that stuff like kind of needs to shine through. And I think there's an opportunity there to like deliver like really high quality content and do that in an efficient way, because the principles of making an email more efficient are similar to making a website more efficient, in terms of like using less data, sending it to only the people who really want it. So I think there's some really interesting things around like how you get people to sign up so that that they actually genuinely wanted to sign up and you're not tricking people into it. And then crafting your emails so that they're actually like really engaging content, and keeping an eye on like your open rates, so that you actually know that like this is something that people still want. And if they don't want, like doing regular cleanups of like people who just never open your emails, like remove them from the list, because you're just firing emails at them every month or every week or whatever it is. And then also like on the email template side, about looking at, and I have to say we need to do this again for ourselves, but like looking at the email templates, how can you redesign them to like, so that they actually use less data, and then that will be good for people, because it will then also load faster on mobile and things like that. So I just there's sort of, for me, it's just a kind of a curious area of digital sustainability that's a little bit outside of our, like, what we do as a business. But I think it is relevant to like most organizations, because nearly everyone does some sort of email marketing.
Absolutely. And I feel almost slightly guilty talking about it on this podcast, when it's to try and avoid it being too much of an advert for EcoSend. But I think so much of what you're saying there, though, there's so much overlap between, you know, what you're trying to figure out with the website carbon calculator and what a web page is, and then you think about an email, and the average marketing email is basically a web page being pushed into someone's own inbox, and often whether or not they want it. And I think, and maybe this very much comes onto the other topic I know we wanted to talk about, where so many of the approaches to building a more sustainable, conscious, like climate conscious web page and website, and sending email in a more climate conscious way, also often are not at the expense of a successful marketing campaign or actual business outcomes. They're often go hand in hand with actually making it more successful, in that the approach to reducing your list size and getting rid of people that are not actually opening emails maybe is going to hurt someone's ego in a certain marketing position because their numbers are not as big. But actually the open rate and the understanding you then get for the success of that email campaign becomes better. So very naturally for me, I think that takes us into that topic of humane, or more humane web design, and more conscious web design and marketing that branches into everything, really. It's like you're not just doing stuff for the climate and everything else is going to suffer as a result. It's quite the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. I think everything is related, and we found that when you use sort of the environmental aspect as a lens through which to look at your work in digital, you end up finding like these opportunities that you hadn't seen before to just make things better, not just environmentally, but, you know, improve user experience and improve web performance and improve privacy and things like this. And it's sort of led us down a path of sort of just thinking more holistically about what we're doing on the web. And, you know, there's other topics that are, you know, people talk about as being important sort of socially, you know, around privacy and accessibility and things like this. And I think where we've got to in our thinking, and Marketa's really helped me with this, is actually saying, well, hang on a minute, like all these things kind of seem to be talked about in silos. Client briefs often are kind of very like siloed, as like, oh, we want this to be an accessible website, and someone else wants it to be a sustainable website, and it's like, well, we just need to like have some more like joined up thinking. Like, let's try and design and build things in a way that is just considerate of the humans that are going to be impacted, and then hopefully
pesky humans, they're always getting in the way. Absolutely. So that's actually so interesting. And so Marketa, you've been a big driving force of sort of bringing this together. So would you say, is this the new movement we're all going to be talking about? Is this the movement you would like to see then, the humane web design movement? Is that is Tom going to have another book about this? I don't know.
I genuinely hope so. I think I think it will be necessary, because at the moment it feels like when we're browsing the web, it may feel like we have the choice over what we consume on the internet, but I think that's actually not very true, because a lot of stuff is just kind of presented to us, you know, and it's done in a very kind of catchy, very manipulative way, so that we actually consume stuff that we wouldn't otherwise consume. You know, we wouldn't, for example, search for it ourselves, for example. But I think it really, just going back to Tom's point, I think everything is related to, you know, like digital sustainability is linked to accessibility, and that is also linked to efficiency and kind of performance. And, it all really kind of needs to work together in order to create a really good user experience that is not manipulative, and that users kind of have the feeling that they have control over, if that makes sense. I think we really need to give the control back to users, and even like on email marketing, sometimes, just the unsubscribe button is so hidden away, and you unsubscribe from one list, and then it's just like, 10 other pops up, and you're just like, how did I end up in this place? It's really important to just be transparent, I think, and that's what we're hoping to just again just raise awareness about some of these topics, and hopefully it will spark new conversations even within teams.
Absolutely. It certainly so speaks to me so effortlessly, really, that it's also such an easy thing to say, to be focused more on the humans in the whole design and building process of the web, but you only have to spend a second on the web to see how far we have gotten from really caring about that end user experience, and that bringing that humane side of things back. When any website that is anything to do with publishing online seems to be pushing you with pop-ups, takes ages to load, probably doesn't look great on a phone versus on the desktop, and it's probably hard to share with someone else, and that's and how that varies for different people in different areas of the world with different abilities. It's just the more we talk about it, the more we put that at the top of the agenda, and I very much hope there will be more books from you, Tom, especially on this topic. I can imagine reading the first chapter right now. So
I came so close to writing the publishers pitch for this only a few weeks ago, and I literally sat down to start writing it, and I was like, Tom, what are you doing?
This is why you went on holiday, right?
I actually did.
So I know we are almost at time. I mean, I knew this would be an episode we would struggle to squeeze into just half an hour, but I just a couple more things. We always like to just pontificate on what the future might look like, and the present is changing so much. Do either of you have many thoughts? Maybe yourself, Tom, on the future of where all of this is going?
I mean, that I would be lying if I said I knew. I honestly don't know where the future of digital's going, especially with the rise of AI. I think that's going to change the internet dramatically, and and I think this really ties in with the humane sort of digital humane web design concept, is that actually a lot of the web is going to become machine generated and machine operated, and we're going to enter this weird world, which we're kind of already in, but it's going to intensify, where it's hard to tell what is real and what's not, and who's human and who's not, and I think we'll need somehow to have spaces that are designated human spaces, where everyone there is a real person, and the content is really real people saying things, and as Marketa said, it's not some machine trying to manipulate you. It's it's there to serve you, rather than you being there to serve some corporation on the other side. So I guess I'm hoping that somehow, in the grand scheme of things, with all these new technologies coming online, that there's enough people who care about this to actually try and create pressure that the technology does serve us. I don't know exactly how that'll happen. I'm just hoping that somehow a critical mass of people who care about humans will somehow lead us all to a good future.
Absolutely. I think it's generally better to be optimistic than pessimistic. I mean, I think.
I think so. I mean, I can easily be pessimistic.
Yeah, it's easy to be pessimistic. We will try to wrap on a more positive note there. I know you had some, or there was some. We always like to ask for advice or see if anyone has been given good advice in the past. I don't know if Marketa, you wanted to share your any of the advice that you received, or if you wanted to share any other thoughts on the future, then please go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think it's just really powerful. I listened to a podcast once, or was it a TED Talk? I think it's a TED Talk by Catherine Hayhoe, and she's a climate scientist, and she created a TED Talk about, or recorded a TED Talk about, how to actually talk about climate change so that people actually want to listen, or what's the most important thing that you can even do. And actually talking about climate change is the most important thing that you can do, because oftentimes it's just a taboo, and we really need to be open and honest. And I think that there's a lot of doom and gloom around this topic, but it's not helpful. We're just we need to talk about it. And so I'm really grateful that at Wholegrain, we do have these conversations internally and even with clients, and we have the opportunity to kind of spin it in a positive way and kind of focus on the solutions rather than, oh my gosh, like these are all the problems and we're all gonna die. Hopefully that's not gonna happen. And all those solutions are there, and we just need to focus on them. And so the one advice that I received a few years ago, that's actually by Jeremy Wade, the same person who hosted the event in London that was so fatal for me in my life. He said that you can change the world just by sharing your story. And I think this is really, really powerful. If we talk about our own experiences and how something inspired us and something led to change within our own lives, I think that other people can take inspiration from that and kind of follow. And this is also related to, climate action or sustainable living or sustainable working or anything else. You can really apply this to everyone. Just sharing your story and kind of leading by example is really powerful. And that's why I would definitely recommend listening to Oxymoron because it's such a good podcast about sustainable business. And it doesn't necessarily always present solutions, but it's just really good to think about how it could be done in a better way. And that's also our aim for the Humane Web project that we're working on. So yeah, lots of exciting stuff coming up.
Amazing. What a positive and uplifting and I would say actionable way to wrap up the show. Thank you. Thank you, Marketa, and thank you, Tom. And I think speaking about the climate and inspiring people to take action is I hope that maybe one or two people listening have feel that way too. And I know you've got so many resources and things that people can go check out to like take a next step after hearing this. So I know that we'll link to the website Carbon Calculator, and wholegraindigital.com is the website for your business, and Curiously Green is the newsletter, which I believe is linked on the Wholegrain site, and both of yourselves are on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. Thank you so much, Tom, Marketa. It has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and I'm excited by all of the inspiration that you've shared, and hopefully many of us will go away and make many more changes and make the web a little bit more humane after this.
Amazing.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for listening. If you've enjoyed today's show, as always, please let us know via whatever player or service you're using. And it really helps get more people to learn about the show and wonderful stories like this. So thank you for listening, and catch you next time.